Hey there, everybody. So welcome. I'm so glad that you guys are here. This is podcast episode, 7 now? I think we're on 7. So I have a few things to talk to you guys about today, and thank you guys for watching. If you're on my YouTube channel right now, I really appreciate it. I'm still growing this. I'm still, buried under a mountain of projects and things. That's typically what happens with me. I have 500 different things going on at once, which means everything takes a little bit longer. So I appreciate you guys working with me while I am continuing to build up the YouTube channel, and thank you. So today is a very interesting set of topics. I've experienced some things over the last couple of weeks that I really feel strongly about, so you guys are going to get to hear a little bit about that. And since it is No Nuance November, which it's taken me all this time to figure out really what exactly this means, if this is just people griping or if this is truly meant to be an open platform sort of situation. So I will talk with you a little bit about that as well. So the very first thing that I have on my trusty notepad, you see me looking over here all the time, I always have my notepad with me. And the very first thing on this was earlier last week I had one of my followers who I absolutely adore this person. They always bring me some great information, as well as, we banter back and forth and things. And she had sent me this video of a gal that had posted on TikTok, of course, and she was explaining her viewpoint very aggressively to her audience, that if you were truly into BDSM and if you were truly a lifestyler, that you have no limits, that limits don't exist. And I'm sure you guys have heard of this whole idea of throwing safe words out the window, of truly being in a relationship that is limitless. And I couldn't help but feel my blood boil a little bit, and I didn't want to call this person out because I don't want to add to it. I don't want to add to her being seen necessarily in terms of spreading some very dangerous and very false information. But her TikTok was really disturbing for a couple of reasons. And I'm not telling you guys, where to go find this person or anything, because I don't want to give them grief. I don't believe in doing that, but I also really believe strongly in this information needs to be set straight. And so I'm choosing just to do it in a different platform. But this idea of there being no limits, and she went on into detail about this, means that if you're truly in the lifestyle and you are truly a submissive, that you want to be choked out to the point of dying and coming back, that you have to be willing to go to the ends of the earth and go the distance, to be cut, to be damaged in some way, to truly go through these things without any safe words whatsoever. That safe words are for pussies, basically. And I was really shocked by this, because this individual was very beautiful and seemed to be a relatively, well-known and liked person. And to hear these sort of things being spread, this is false. For those that are brand new into the lifestyle and who maybe kink talk, unfortunately, I'm really sorry, is your very first exposure to the world of kink or BDSM or dominant and submissive relationships and dynamics, alternative forms of love, alternative forms of relationships. Please understand that having limits makes you mature. That having no limits is extremely immature. I mean, if you think about it, what happens to teenagers when they get out on the road for the first time? They go and make some really crappy decisions, myself included. I was there. And you believe for some reason that you're invincible, that you have no limits, and you grow into finding your limits. You grow into understanding what those limits are, and hopefully you grow with a mentor who is there to guide you, who is there to help you understand how to identify your limits before you've hit the point of no return, or you've crossed something that you don't want to cross and you can't take back. And this is why BDSM, why the true educators, the sexuality educators, the BDSM educators, the kink educators, why the ones that come from a background of extensive experience, but not just experience from the past, but experience they're continuing to gain. We're always learning. We're lifelong learners, right? I'm a very big advocate in believing that we have the ability to continue evolving for the rest of our existence, in this life and in the next. And when I hear things like limitless, well, limitless, what about being limitless is good? That means that you haven't found your limit, that you haven't experienced enough to understand what a limit is. Death is a limit. I'm sorry, but it is. And that's a limit I don't want to go to. So this whole idea that she was really conveying, and it felt very shameful, that if you were submissive or you were someone in the lifestyle, it meant that you had to be willing to push yourself to that degree, or you didn't count, or you weren't considered worthy to be considered in the lifestyle, or part of the lifestyle. And that's not the case. You're part of the lifestyle. If you're doing your research, you're in the lifestyle. If you are wanting to learn more, you're in the lifestyle. If you want to be in the lifestyle, you are in the lifestyle. It's not a condition that a group of people set forth and say, you have to follow these protocols and you have to have these standards met in order to be in this exclusive club. I'm sorry, sexuality is everybody's club. It's everyone's thing. Everyone has a form of sexuality. And whether that be you're still learning it, you're still growing it, you maybe aren't comfortable with it yet, but you're trying to be, or you're completely comfortable with it, it's your sexuality. And to have somebody stand there and put these sort of extremely, grossly over-exaggerated and absolutely dangerous exclusions on the lifestyle really hit a pain point for me. So I wanted to bring that up to those of you that are watching, that are maybe listening, trying to understand they're submissive, or they're trying to help their partner understand how to be a dominant or how to be a submissive, or whatever your situation is. Limits make you mature. When you jump into a situation and you think you are invincible, that is usually when you find out you really are not. And it is a very heart-wrenching sometimes and very sad situation. And I've seen some really sad situations occur because people thought they didn't have limits. You do. Everybody does. And you need to do the research, and the communication needs to be there for that to happen. One of the things that this gal had stated was no safe words. You know, that's obviously a red flag. If you've been on Kink Talk at all, you've, I'm sure, seen one or two or several of us mention how dangerous and what a big, giant, waving red flag that is when someone says they have no safe words. Safe words is a form of communication. And let me explain something here to you. When we're talking about safe, sane, and consensual kinks, right? We're safe, sane, consensual. The moment you remove a level of communication from that equation, it is no longer consensual. It is no longer safe. It is no longer sane. It is just plain dangerous. It is wrong. It is abuse. It is not good, and that is the kind of shit that completely gives BDSM, sadists, masochists, those that are in the dynamic, a really shit name, man. It sucks. I'm sorry, but you have to have safe words. You have to have a way out. You have to have a door. And if you have some sort of a death wish to prove to people that you don't need it for some reason, it just makes you seem like an idiot, because the fact is, death is always going to be a limit. I don't know how to say it any more plainly than that. If you leave yourself open to an abusive situation that is truly, truly bad, you're allowing someone to abuse you. It's not consensual abuse because you've given up your right to communicate that. That's not consensual anymore. So I just want to leave you guys with that, this whole idea. If you are in a relationship, and please, by no means am I judging anybody here. I don't think that, if you choose to be in a relationship where you have that sort of level of trust, and that is between you and your consenting partner, that you've communicated this lack of consent, please keep it to yourself. Please, please, please. You choose to live your life however you want to live it, but the moment that you start to tell others who don't have the ability to know right from wrong, or know any better, who maybe haven't done their research yet, to tell them that this is an okay thing to do right from the get-go is wrong. It is dangerous. So please don't do that. So that's my soapbox for that. I really wanted to get that off my chest, maybe for No Nuance November. Don't spread stuff about there not being limits. Everyone has one. Death is it. And in the BDSM lifestyle, sometimes bad things happen to people, and you really have to be careful and know that those limits are there for a reason. It's okay, and everyone has them. Nothing to be ashamed of. So my next thing that I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about, since we talked a little bit about safe, sane, and consensual, I have been following very closely this whole truisms that Sunny Megatron has been talking about, and it's this idea about there being an only one true way to BDSM, or only one true way to be in a lifestyle, or to kink. And in any capacity, whether we're talking about exhibitionism or pet play or DDLG or any of these others, whatever the subset of kink is, that there's only one true way to do it, and that is not the case either. That is a myth that I hope gets busted across the board here very soon. Sexuality is unique to every single person, and with sexuality comes kink for some, and those kinks, because each individual is their own unique person, those are going to be unique as well. And so this idea that there has to be guardrails, that there has to be a standard in order to be considered a brat, in order to be considered a specific type of submissive or a type of dominant, is just false. You identify how you wish to identify. Whatever resonates truest with you, whatever your truth is, that is how you identify. And if somebody else is coming along and saying, well, actually, no, I've been in the lifestyle for 30 some odd years or for 50 years, and this is not the way. You have to be Gorian if you're going to be a submissive, or you can't be a collared brat. There is no such thing as a collared brat. A brat is just a submissive who hasn't been collared yet. No. It's absolutely ridiculous to me that someone can come along and blatantly make those types of statements. And I've heard them more and more lately. You are who you are, however you wish to identify. And that's a beautiful thing. The whole reason that so many of us come to kink, and by no means am I blatantly saying that this is for everybody across the board, but for a large majority of us that have come into kink, the reason we came into kink was because it was an open door to experiencing things that were not of the vanilla or norm, however you want to call that. That we wanted to explore something. We wanted to have sexual freedom. It was a sexual liberating experience for me when I came to know what kink was. And the more I explored it, the more liberated I felt, to know I wasn't strange, to know that I was okay, and that these feelings and these things that I was interested in, these fetishes, they were okay too. And there was nothing wrong with it. I just enjoyed things that were different from maybe what the mass population enjoyed. That's pretty cool. And the more that I got to learn about other people and what they were doing and how they kinked, man, I mean, it was like a buffet, a giant cruise ship midnight buffet of all these delicacies that I had no idea existed. And now I get to understand them and get to learn about them. That's really amazing to me. And to think that there are groups of people out there that truly believe that no, in order to be in our special little club, you have to maintain a certain level of submissiveness, or you have to be this type of high protocol. No, you don't. You don't. You do what works best for you and your partner, or for if you're not in a partnership type relationship and you're just doing this on your own, maybe you're a self-collared submissive, maybe you're a submissive that's just learning, maybe you're a dominant that's just coming into understanding what being a dominant really means and entails. Maybe you don't want to be a full-time dom. Maybe you want to just be a play partner and you want to be a dominant in that specific instance. Or maybe you only want to be a dominant with one gender. Maybe you feel, for example, me, great example here. I am very, very submissive to my dom, and only my dom. My dom that I have now, my daddy, and my husband, he has been the only person in this entire existence that has been able to, that has actually been able to to make me submit. And I don't say make me as in he forced it on me, but he made me want to submit for a lot of different reasons. And first and foremost, it was his level of integrity. It was his level of me being able to trust him and to see what type of person he was. That's what made me submit to him. And any other relationship I've ever had, I've always been dominant. I was a dom in most of my past relationships. I identified primarily as a switch because I always knew I wanted to be a submissive, but couldn't find somebody that I really resonated with, that met the same sort of truth that I had, until I met my now dom. And it is it's a journey that each one of us takes, and we take it very much on our own, but we usually meet friends along the way that show us new things and help us to grow and evolve. And so we're always doing that. Never stop learning, never stop reading, never stop taking classes. If you're a baby sub or a baby dom, however you identify yourself right now, you know, there's a baby dom or a baby sub in every single one of us. We all were there once too. And in many ways, we always will be. There's always going to be someone that is more experienced than you, that has more knowledge than you, that has done more than you. But that doesn't mean that their journey is any less valid than yours. It just means that they have a little bit more on their buffet plate right now. Doesn't mean you're not going to have a plate that's loaded up too. It just means that they got to the buffet a little earlier. Not a biggie. So I want you guys to really feel comfortable with yourselves. And if anything from my podcast that you all get, I hope I am able to leave you with that knowledge and knowing that you are not alone, that however you identify is perfectly acceptable. Whether maybe you don't even identify as a dom or a sub right now. Maybe you are listening to this podcast and just trying to get a better understanding of what alternative lifestyles exist out there. And I by no means know them all. I really don't. I've been lucky enough to experience alternative lifestyles in different capacities in different parts of my life, but I by no means am the end-all be-all to it. I just read a lot and like to talk to people. So my biggest piece of advice, that if you are wanting to learn more and you are encountering these situations where people are saying, you are not right, or you are not kinking right, or you are not subbing right, or doming right. You know, what is right? There isn't a standard here. There isn't a BDSM police that's going to come knocking on your front door and tell you that, oh, no, you have to hold that crap a different way, and oh, no, you need to make sure that brat is doing this instead. You do what works best for you. The idea of your sexuality is it's supposed to be fulfilling to you. It's your sexuality, not anybody else's. So it's not their place to come in and say you're doing it wrong. In most of my podcasts and in my future courses and classes that I'll be doing, and in all my writings that I've done on this, it's very much a premise for me to present to you all this idea that your sexuality is truly your journey. And however you want to explore that, as long as you're doing it safely, sanely, consensually, and you feel good about what it is that you are engaging in and you are doing, that is all that matters. That is it. This idea that there are all these rules and guidelines and truisms, as Sunny says. Damn, guys, share some love. Be kind to one another. You know, sex is supposed to be fun, not, bad. We all just want better sex, right? So I hope I can leave you guys with that. Have better sex. Don't give a shit. Just do what you guys want to do for you and yourself that makes sense for you and your partner. That's it. So that's a couple of the things that I had on my mind this week that really just kind of stuck with me. This limitless and all of these rules and truisms and whatnot. So with that in mind, I did do a TikTok recently, and you guys have probably seen it already by this point, about communication techniques that my daddy and I do when we're in the middle of a play session. And I mentioned two of them in particular. One was the traffic light system, which is probably, at least from what I've seen in my experience, has been the most common. the green, red, or the green, yellow, red situation where green is like, hey, I'm good to go. You know, you check in with your partner and they say green, full steam ahead, right? Yellow is more of a slow down. Usually I'm using yellow if if my daddy and I have gone through a very intense edging session and we have just gone to the ends of the earth and back, right? Usually I'm on my fifth or sixth orgasm by that point, and I am just tired. My body is spent. I am just done. And he wants to push me a little bit further and a little bit further because he's a pleasure dom. He wants to keep doing his thing. And usually at that point it's like, okay, yellow, I gotta switch. I need a break right now. Very rarely will I ever use red, and red is typically I'm in sub drop right now, and it's actually rarely has anything to do with something he's done. It's typically me in my own head. Something pops up in my head. Somehow I get triggered. You know, I start thinking about my kids. I start thinking about my job. I start thinking about the laundry and whatever it is. Something pops in my head and I just break. And I can't get myself back into it. And sometimes it's when it's been quiet for quite a while. For example, when he's doing rope play with me, and we're doing some different shibari art and whatnot, and he's wrapping me up, and it's been about an hour or two. Usually at that point, I've slowly started to come down, and it's just been so long, and he's working diligently. He's trying to learn something or master something, a new knot, for example. And it begins to kind of break a little bit. So that is usually a situation where I'm like, okay, we finish up going through whatever rope play that we're doing, and I'm just like, okay, I'm red. I'm in sub drop. I need to come out of these ropes. I just need to lay down. I'm not in it anymore. Very, very rarely is it because I've been pushed too far or I've been called something. Although I have had those situations early on in our relationship when we were still kind of getting to know one another and testing each other's limits. And we've had all these different talks and whatnot, and sat down and explained, these are the names I don't like to be called, these are the situations I don't like, these are the sensations I don't like, please stay away from those. These ones over here are my favorites, these ones I would prefer for you to use. And it took a little bit of time. And a really good example of a situation that was a little bit difficult for me to get through, where I did use red, was he had used the word slut with me. And the word slut is a really difficult word, a very difficult word for me to get over. I had been called it many times growing up through my own past, and I was called it in the worst ways. And a lot of times it was because I was trying to be sexual, or I was trying to be exploratory with my partner at the time, like my ex. And I expressed, a certain kink that I was interested in trying, and was immediately called that. And it was done in a very derogatory, like, are you crazy? What's wrong with you? And it hurt deeply. And I didn't know any of these other types of groups and communities existed at the time. So I was left to just feel like slut was a bad name. This was just a terrible thing. And for years, my dom, he explained, what the word meant to him. And we talked about it over and over. But it still remained a very hard limit. You don't call me that. You don't use that name with me. It is a no-go. And it wasn't until I did my own exploration and understanding what that word really meant, and I started to come around to it. I was perfectly fine if others wanted to use that name for their partners or for themselves, but it really wasn't a name I ever wanted to be called for myself. And coincidentally enough, I'm now going through this postdoctorate program for sexuality education. I'm trying to get my certifications about another year or so out from it, but I'll be a certified, ASEC certified sexuality educator, and with a specialization in kink. And so I was doing some research, and I heard a lot of great things about the ethical slut. I also heard a lot of really not great things about the ethical slut, the book. I believe Jane Hardy is the author. And it was really eye-opening to me when I read it. I actually did a whole write-up on it. I listened to it on audiobook and did a stream of consciousness sort of response to what it was that I was listening to and how I was resonating with it and where different parts of it kind of resonated and spoke to me for different points in my life. And having this very real epiphany as I was going through this book and listening to it, and I wanted I wanted to put that into chronology form so that you guys could see it. And I hope that if you read it, that you'll understand sort of the background a little bit more about why and where this whole slut idea came from. And then also the realization that slut doesn't have to be a bad name. It actually, now it's off the list of limits for me. And I came around entirely to it because I understood now a different perspective of it that changed my own perspective. And now I feel very empowered. I feel very good that this is a sexually, it's a sweet little unforgettable thing to be a slut and to be someone that is very much sexually empowered, not somebody that is promiscuous. Slut doesn't have to be promiscuous. Slut can be something that is a beautiful name to be called when you want it. Of course, you always want to make sure that you speak to your partner before you use a name like that. Ask them what their background is on the name. How do they feel truly about it? How does it make you feel to say it? My daddy and I had that discussion, and we decided that that was a name that was okay for us. Now, being called that by somebody else likely be a very different situation for me. But between my partner and I, that's a name I'm okay with now, which is a huge step forward from where I was 6 months ago. So learning is always happening, and I do heavily recommend you guys checking out the Ethical Slut book. I'm not endorsed. I don't sponsor. I like to do book reviews. My MFA is English, so I really enjoy writing, and I love doing responses to stuff like that. So you guys are going to see more and more of these book reviews coming out very soon. The next one that I'm actually in the process of working on, I actually have a couple of them here to show you. Come As You Are, this one here, along with the Come As You Are workbook. Both of these, I have heard a lot of great things, and I know a lot of great sexuality educators that actually use this the set in a lot of their courses and workshops and things that they put on, and I was just super enthralled with it. So I'm about a quarter of the way through right now. I have not yet started the workbook, but as I move through it, I'll definitely give you guys updates on what I'm finding and what's being helpful for me in my relationship. So maybe you guys might find some good stuff in it as well. And then the other one is Why Good Sex Matters. This one I'm reading and I absolutely love. It's very neuroscience based. I'm a little bit sad that it kind of tapers off with the neuroscience about halfway through, but it's a good introduction to neuroscience and how it actually affects our sex drive and why having good sex actually helps to promote brain growth and things. So I really, really like that one. But I hope that this little bit of me and this little vlog podcast gives you guys a little bit of insight as to, some of these feelings and situations that are popping up around Kink Talk. It's no different than any other type of subgroup in our lives. You have the ones that think they know it all and the ones that don't, and the ones that are in between that are just trying to make everyone coexist. So I hope that this has been helpful for you guys. And my next video that I'm actually going to be doing, I'm going to be reading some erotica, and I'm debating whether or not I should do a YouTube about it or not. If I should, YouTube the reading of the erotica or just do a podcast. So if you guys are interested in that, please drop it below. It'll be some very taboo erotica. So I hope you guys have a great week and happy belated Thanksgiving and early holidays. Thanks, guys.